Hi there, and welcome back to Ancorton Models TV, and today I'm going to show you how to put together the N-gauge bacon butty hut from Ancorton Models. So, let's get started. So, let's make a start by seeing what we actually get in the pack. So, into the cover sheet, a set of instructions, a fret with enough parts on there to actually make up two. The double O version only makes up one hut, but the N-gauge version, which this one is, only will make up two. And we also have a selection of signs as well, which includes there's newspapers, flowers, hot dogs, or the Burt's Bacon Butties, which is probably what we'll go for. So I'll put those to one side for a moment. So I'll have a quick scan through the instructions just to see how they recommend putting it together, and then I'll make a start. Okay, so I've just read through the instructions, and on the whole it's easy and fairly simple to make up, because essentially it's just a box. Well, the first instruction I'm actually going to ignore because it just suggests putting the business names, like the newspapers, flowers, bacon butty hut, on the piece to begin with before we do anything else. And I think I'd rather leave that to the end and actually get the hut built. So the first job is to actually get the lintel, which is part 10, onto the top of the door. Now it's laser cut parts, so they come out relatively easily, but they are, with being N-gauge, obviously they are quite small. So how I'm going to do this is I've just cut out the lintel piece, just give it a quick clean up, and I'm then going to stick that to the top of the door piece, which is part number 1, first. But I'm going to do it whilst that's still in the fret, because that's going to be a little bit easier than trying to stick it on there afterwards. So now I've cut that out, let's use a bit of rocket card glue for this build today. There we are. So don't need a lot of glue on this, but just enough to grab the piece we need, because it is small. So some tweezers, just more or less pop it in place. You'll be able to see on the fret where it is supposed to sit, because it's etched into the wooden parts. So now that's in, we can then actually look at getting the other parts out and start joining them together. So first of all, we'll take the door out, being careful not to unglue the piece you've just stuck on, and the front piece as well. So, just reread that again. So, the instructions are clear. You have to make sure that the side piece, so the piece of the door on, goes to the back of the front piece, which is the one with the big hole in it for the hatch, and it would attach that way. Now there isn't any location tabs, sadly, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So let's get the glue out again. Obviously you want to make sure that it sits at right angles as best as you can. So if you've got a square, you could use a square, or you could do as I'm doing and use the lines on a cutting mat. I'll have to stick that door piece back on again afterwards. So do one side and then do the other, making sure you get them the same way around. Obviously try and make sure you get it the right way up as well. So you should end up with two pieces that look like a pair of L's. Once the glue is dried on both of them, then it'll be a case of sticking the two together to make up a box. So I'll let them dry and we'll then get them stuck back together. Okay, so now they've had a little bit of time to dry, it's now time to put the two sides together. So let's add there we go. So here's one of those. Just do take your time with it, and it should all come together quite nicely for you. And of course the thing is, at the moment there's very little strength in it, because there's nothing to hold it square and in place. But unfortunately that's just one of those things. But what you can do is, once it has sort of grabbed it, you can add an extra bit of glue into the corners just to help give it an extra bit of strength on the joints, like so. So there we go, we've now got a nice square, well, a basic open box, and then it's time, the next part is to fit the roof to it, which then will obviously make it a lot stronger. So let's get that cut out. Like so. So with the roof, it suggests to just stick it on with an even gap around all the edges. So just put that on there, and just see how it goes. it's gonna be pretty much flush with the front to the back, but you will have an overhang on the ends with that. But we do at least have a little hut coming together quite nicely. So I'm going to let this dry for a bit, just to get some strength into it, and then we can look at adding some of the smaller bits that go on. So the next part is to put the actual serving hatch on, which is part 7, which is a sort of T-shaped looking piece. There we go. And there's no prizes for guessing whereabouts that's got to go, and obviously it fits in the hole like so. So let's add the glue. And get that in there. Now you want to try and get the serving hatch as level as you can. With it. And then I'm just going to add again just an extra little bit of glue just underneath, just to get it a little bit more strength, and the same on the inside there, just to help it out a bit. So hopefully you can see now we've got a little serving hatch on there as well. Now the handy thing about this being actually having an open bottom on it is that excuse me, you could easily fit a figure inside when you come to put it on the layout, to help, you know, just add an extra bit of detail in there, which would probably be a good thing. So again, just let that dry for a minute before we move on to the next bit, which is the actual cover hatch. So the actual hatch cover, which is part 8, needs to be cut out and glued in position. Now it suggests in instructions, glue the hatch part 8 to the top of the counter opening, and once the glue is set, glue in the hatch supports, which are parts 6. The problem with that is you don't necessarily know the angle that it needs to sit at, so I think it is a case of just glue it in and then kind of hope for the best that you get the right angle for it. So let's just have a go and see how we get on with it. So I've got it on there, and obviously it's going to be a bit delicate while we wait for it to dry a bit, and hopefully it's going to produce something near the right kind of angle. So I'm just going to leave it upside down while I cut out the little bracing pieces. Which are very, very small in fairness. So if you wanted, you could possibly make new ones, perhaps out of some brass or plastic rod, maybe. They are very, very small. So consequently are going to be very delicate and probably an absolute pain to fit. Now they are supposed to have a bit of an angle on each end, which you probably will not even be able to see on the camera there. But it does have a bit of a chamfer on each end, so obviously try and get in the gaps somewhat. I'm just trying to do a bit of a test run to also see how wide the lid needs to open on it, which is exceptionally wide. Bear with me a minute or two. Wow. Yeah. This is very fiddly, this bit. I'm not entirely sure how best to figure it out. Alright, okay. So, what I've done is I've stuck the two supports on first, because obviously the hatch fell off because the glue just hadn't dried enough, and then I've put the hatch back on, and I'm hoping that with just some gentle tweaking and teasing it's going to be able to match up to a point with the supports that I can then attach them all together. Now, this is fiddly. There is no question about that. It is fiddly. And personally, I think if you are struggling to fit these supports, I would say just leave them off. If you get to the point where you are really struggling and getting frustrated with them, I would just say leave them off. Because, like I said, they are very fiddly to do. My glue's bunged up again, and it takes quite a bit of patience. To get them to go. Typical, but my glue seems to have bunged up right when you need it. There we go. So it's not necessarily perfect because the supports are raised above there, but I think for what it is, it's going to be the best I'm going to get that. I think these supports are a bit too long. It's either that or I've got them in completely the wrong place. But it is one of those things. It's not exactly easy to tell on the photos, on the instructions for it. So once the glue has dried, and that has dried fully, if you get it like mine is with those supports raised above the hatch part there, some small cutters will easily just nip them off and level it out. a bit better, and no one's going to know the difference anyway. So yeah, that's how I'd deal with that bit. So the final piece to go on is the business name board, which is part 9, and is a case of should be a case of simply sticking it in place above, on the top of the hut. Once again, the glue's misbehaving. Glue on that. And get the name board on. Of course, once you've got all this stuck together and you're happy with it, that is when obviously you can then paint it and put on the name board of your choice. So there we are, one bacon butty hut. So there we are, that is how to build the little Engage bacon butty hut from Ancorton Models. Now, as you saw, it was quite a bit fiddly, particularly with the hatch there, but on the whole it's a really good kit. It's really simple and easy to do, and if you take your time, you shouldn't really have too many problems. And of course, with the Engage version, you actually get 2 to build in the pack as well, which is an added bonus. So anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, do remember to give us a good old thumbs up. Also make sure that you hit that subscribe button as well, because that really does help us out quite a bit. So until next time, happy modelling.